Most goodbyes aren't spoken. They're felt in the silence that follows the final betrayal. Let that hit deep, my friends, because that right there, that's not just a quote. It's the story of your pain written in silence. You didn't leave with a speech. You didn't slam the door and scream, "I'm done." You just stopped speaking, stopped chasing, stopped explaining. And now they're sitting in that silence, starting to realize it wasn't a pause. It wasn't a cold shoulder. It was a goodbye, and it was final. But let's rewind, because we need to be brutally honest about how it got to this point. They played with your heart like it was a game. They gave you breadcrumbs and called it effort. They disappeared when you needed them most, gave half love and expected full loyalty. They didn't call. They didn't check in. They ignored the messages, took your patience for granted. And when you finally pulled away, when you finally chose peace over pain, they acted confused. You see, folks, the truth is, people like that don't change when they see your worth. They change when they feel your absence. But here's the part you've been too kind to admit. They never really cared like you did. If someone can sleep peacefully while you're crying over them, they're not your person. If someone can ghost you and still expect to walk back into your life like nothing happened, they never valued you. And if they had to lose your silence to realize your value, then they never deserved to hear your voice in the first place. And yet, you still care. And that's what we need to talk about. Why? Why are you still checking their profile? Why are you still wondering if they miss you? Still waiting for a text from someone who couldn't even give you consistency? Let me say it straight. You're not confused, you're conditioned. Conditioned to believe that love means pain, that silence means hope, that if you wait long enough, they'll finally become who they promised to be. But they won't. My friend, wake up. They weren't confused. They were comfortable. Comfortable knowing you'd always be there. Comfortable treating you like an option while you treated them like a priority. And now that you've gone silent, now that the game stopped, now they feel it. That ache, that regret. That's not love. That's the consequence of mistaking your loyalty for weakness. So let me scold you, not out of anger, but out of love. Why are you holding on to someone who already let go of you? Why are you losing sleep over someone who sleeps just fine without you? Why are you writing chapters in a book they stopped reading? You were not created to beg for love. You were not built to chase someone who runs from your truth. You are not here to be someone's backup plan. You are here to rise. This silence of yours, it's not passive, it's not petty, it's powerful. It's the loudest goodbye they'll ever hear. Because silence doesn't need punctuation. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need a response. It just is. It's the space where you finally found your peace. It's the moment you stopped talking and started healing. So now, while they sit in confusion, trying to figure out how they lost you without a warning, let the silence keep echoing. Let it remind them that you're not gone because you're weak. You're gone because you finally chose yourself. You're not broken, you're building. You're not lost, you're leveling up. And from this point forward, your silence isn't about pain, it's about power. Say it with me. Watch me heal. Say it again, with conviction, like they're right there, listening to every word you've held back. Watch me heal. And now, don't just whisper it to yourself. Go write it in the comments. Simply type, "Watch me heal." Write it once and for all. Tell them that you're not broken, you're rebuilding, that you're not crying in silence, you're rising in it. Tell them that the version of you they once underestimated is gone, and what's coming next. They couldn't handle it if they tried. Write it, watch me heal. This is not just a line, it's your declaration, your turning point, your comeback. Let them feel the fire of what they lost, without you saying another word. You don't need closure. You don't need revenge. You just need one thing: healing. And if this hits something in you, press that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. We're not done yet. Number 1. The goodbye they never heard. The worst kind of goodbye is the one they never saw coming until it was too late to matter. Let that one hit your chest like a hammer, my friends, because this isn't about a tear-filled speech or a big dramatic exit where you scream and cry and they beg you to stay. This isn't a movie. This is real life. And in real life, some of the deepest goodbyes come without a single word. No warning, no closure, just silence. And that silence, it's a gut punch they never expected. You see, they were so used to your presence, they thought it was permanent. They mistook your loyalty for weakness, your patience for permission. They thought no matter how many times they ignored your worth, you'd still be there, checking your phone, overthinking their absence, waiting like a background character in their story. But not this time, because this time you didn't argue, you didn't beg, you didn't even bother to explain yourself. You just went quiet. And that silence, oh, it's loud now. It's echoing in their chest like a scream they can't silence. You were always the one who tried, the one who showed up, the one who stayed even when they didn't deserve it. You gave them every version of love, loud, soft, forgiving, fierce. And when all of that was met with confusion, with inconsistency, with disrespect, you gave them one last version of yourself. The one that doesn't talk anymore. The one that walks away. Picture it like this: a power outage in the middle of a storm. 1 minute, everything's lit up. Your warmth, your messages, your check-ins, your attention, and then suddenly, dark. Cold, nothing. That's what it felt like to them when you stopped. At first, they thought it was temporary, a short break, that you'd come back like always. But the days went by. The phone stayed silent. You didn't watch their story. You didn't text. You didn't explain. And that silence started to grow teeth, started to chew at their ego, started to whisper something they didn't expect to hear: you're not coming back. That's when the panic sets in. That's when the overthinking begins. Did they really leave? Did I mess this up? Are they done with me? But here's what breaks them. There's no answer, because you're not playing the game anymore. You've stopped giving them the privilege of your reaction. And now they're stuck trying to solve a puzzle they broke the pieces to. That, my friends, is what real loss feels like. Not when someone yells at you, but when they vanish and never explain. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't care to anymore. And let's talk about why they didn't hear this goodbye coming. Because they were too comfortable, too entitled, too confident that you would always be the one to make things right. They thought you were too emotional, too soft, too invested to ever walk away without a word. But what they forgot is this: emotional people also hit a breaking point. And when they go quiet, it's not because they don't feel, it's because they finally felt enough. Let me ask you something. Why do they only start valuing you when you're gone? Why is your silence suddenly louder than all the times you spoke? Because now they don't have control. They don't have your updates. They don't know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what you're planning. And that mystery, that unknown, it's tormenting them. Because you used to be predictable, available, always there. But this version of you, this quiet, focused, rising version of you, they don't know how to read it. And they don't like what they can't understand. So let them sit in the discomfort. Let them replay the last thing you said, trying to find clues. Let them check your profile 10 times a day. Let them wonder what you're doing, who you're becoming, and whether they'll ever get a chance to come back. Spoiler alert, they won't. Because this silence wasn't the calm before the storm. This silence was the storm. They'll tell themselves you're being dramatic, that you're giving the silent treatment. But deep down, they know. They know they pushed you too far. They know they took too much. And now? Now they're realizing your silence was the goodbye they didn't hear, but will never forget. And the worst part? You didn't slam the door. You just stopped holding it open. So hold your head high. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them clarity. What you owe is to yourself, and that means peace, healing, and space from anyone who only loved you when it was easy. Your silence wasn't passive. It was a choice, a statement, a declaration of self-worth. And now it's a mirror they can't look away from. Say it with me. Watch me heal. Say it again, like they're standing in front of you. Watch me heal. Now go write it in the comments. Don't keep it in your chest. Let it out. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're no longer seeking validation from someone who didn't even deserve your voice. This is your moment. Own it. Watch me heal. Hit that like button if this hit you. Subscribe if you've ever had to walk away in silence, and stay with me, because they thought you were done. Nah, you're just getting started. Number 2, you were loud with loyalty, quiet with goodbye. You gave them everything, and they used it as evidence to call you too much. Let that settle, my friends, because this is where so many of you broke and didn't even realize it. You weren't weak. You weren't crazy. You were loud with love. You were expressive, loyal, honest. You didn't play it cool. You didn't withhold. You didn't calculate your worth. You just gave. And what did they do with it? They twisted it, used it against you, took all that open-hearted loyalty and painted you as emotional, needy, dramatic. They weaponized your softness, made your love look like a flaw. And you? You started shrinking yourself just to stay close to someone who never deserved you at full volume. You were loud with loyalty, my friend. You showed up every time, even when they went cold, even when they disappeared for days. You checked in, you forgave, you gave benefit after benefit of the doubt. You bent until your spine nearly snapped. And still, it was never enough. Or worse, it was too much, too thoughtful, too present, too consistent. Imagine that. Being punished for the very things that made you real. They didn't want real, they wanted convenient. And when real started revealing their inconsistency, when your light made their shadows obvious, they called you the problem. They said you were intense, that you were always on, that you expected too much. But let me ask you this. Is it really too much to ask for what you give? Or were you just giving it to someone who never planned on matching it? You were loud with love, and they took it as noise. But here's where the shift happened. When the goodbye came, you didn't shout. You didn't beg. You didn't announce it with fireworks. You just stopped. Stopped explaining. stopped fighting to be seen, stopped trying to prove that your love was enough. Because once a heart gets tired, not angry, not bitter, just tired, it doesn't slam the door. It simply walks away, quietly, calmly, like someone who's finally done watering dead things. That silence, that's what's haunting them now. Not the fights, not the tears, not the texts, the silence. Because they never expected it from you. They thought they'd drained you, trained you to always come back, to always justify, to always forgive. But they were wrong. Your silence wasn't the absence of feeling. It was the result of too much feeling, for too long, with no return. Let me paint it for you. Imagine you're shouting across a canyon day after day, waiting for an echo that never comes. You pour out your voice until it's raw, hoping maybe this time you'll hear something back. And then one day, you stop. Not because you don't care, but because you finally realize you've been echoing into emptiness. That's when it changes. That's when you go quiet. And that silence, that's louder than anything you ever said before. Now they're feeling it. The void you left is real. The noise is gone. No more texts, no more check-ins, no more emotional safety net. And it's only now, when they no longer have access to your energy, that they start realizing what it actually meant. You were never too much. They were just too small to receive it. And now that you're gone, they're starving for the very energy they once called excessive. But don't get it twisted. You didn't go silent to get attention. You went silent to protect your dignity, because silence isn't weakness. Silence is self-respect, wrapped in steel. And when you stop explaining yourself to people who only listen to use your words against you, you reclaim something priceless, your peace. So let them sit in the quiet. Let them wonder. Let them miss the loudness they once rejected. They'll come to understand that the silence wasn't empty. It was everything they ignored, finally leaving the room. Say it with me. I choose peace. Now say it again with power. I choose peace. Go write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that your silence isn't a weakness. It's your upgrade. Number 3. Silence is the language of a fed-up heart. When words no longer protect you, silence becomes your shield. That's the truth most people don't talk about, my friends. Not every silence comes from peace. Some silences are born from pain, from exhaustion, from repeating the same conversations, the same apologies, the same desperate explanations, only to watch them bounce off someone who already decided not to hear you. Silence in this kind of love isn't an escape. It's the final boundary. It's the sound of a heart that's fed up. Not cold, not cruel, just done. You weren't avoiding a conversation. Let's kill that lie right now. You were avoiding becoming a broken record in your own relationship. How many times were you expected to explain your hurt? How many times did you walk them through your pain like a tour guide, hoping this time they'd finally understand? But they didn't, because they weren't listening to hear. They were listening to defend, to deflect, to blame. And eventually, your voice got tired. Not just your voice, your soul. That's when silence came in. Not as a strategy, but as a survival mechanism. Think about it like this. When your house is on fire, you don't keep yelling to the people outside to help. Not when they're holding the matches. You run, you protect yourself, you get out. That's what silence becomes. A fire escape. You weren't being passive. You weren't being immature. You were being done. And being done doesn't need a paragraph. It needs a decision. The truth is, you tried. You gave chances that weren't deserved. You had conversations that drained you. You explained your triggers, your pain, your boundaries, and each time they nodded like they understood, then walked right over those boundaries like they were suggestions. They didn't take your voice seriously, so you took it back. And when you stopped speaking, that's when the panic set in. Because silence is confusing to people who rely on your noise to maintain their control. You ever notice that? The moment you stop talking, stop reacting, stop giving them updates on your thoughts, they suddenly want to talk. They suddenly want to fix things. That's not because they miss you. It's because they miss the version of you they could manage. The version who stayed emotionally available no matter how they treated you. But silence is unpredictable. It doesn't give them anything to work with. And that's when they start spiraling. You see, silence is not just a lack of words. It's the loudest language a fed-up heart can speak. It says, I've said everything there is to say. It says, I've tried, and I've bled, and I've bent far enough. It says, I've reached the end of the line, and no, I'm not repeating the syllabus again just because you chose to skip class. It's not avoidance, it's clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. And the moment you reach it, everything changes. They don't expect it from you. They expect the emotional messages, the over-explaining, the breakdowns, the last-minute forgiveness. But this time, you're quiet. And that stillness, it terrifies them. Because now they're the ones feeling uncertain. They're the ones staring at their phone, rereading the last message you sent, wondering what the silence means. Wondering if you're just angry or if you're actually done. And that unknown is unbearable to people who used to thrive on your predictable presence. But let's make one thing very clear. You didn't choose silence out of spite. You chose it out of self-respect. Because at some point, you realize that repeating yourself to someone who doesn't care is worse than being alone. It's spiritual suffocation. And silence? That's your oxygen mask. That's your healing ground. That's the moment you stop pouring into what's leaking and start saving yourself. So if they're confused now, let them be. If they're panicking, let them. If they suddenly care now that you've gone quiet, too late. Because silence may not be loud, but it's final. It speaks in echoes they'll hear every time they wonder why you changed. And the answer will always be the same. You didn't change, you got tired. Say it with me. Silence is survival. Write it in the comments. Say it again so your heart can hear it. Silence is survival. Not every fight needs a response. Not every wound needs to be explained. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is go silent and let your absence explain everything your words never could. Number 4. They thought you'd wait forever until you didn't. They thought your love was endless until they ran out of time. Let's talk about that, my friends. Let's talk about how you bent over backwards for someone who couldn't even lift a finger for you. You waited, not just for days or weeks. You waited through disrespect, through silence, through every selfish decision they made, thinking you'd still be there when they were done playing games. You gave them time. You gave them space. You gave them your soul, hoping they'd wake up one day and realize what they had before it was too late. But here's the part they never saw coming. You stopped waiting. They thought you'd wait forever. They counted on it. They treated your heart like a spare tire, only needed when something else broke. And every time they disappeared, they assumed you'd still be in the same place, same love, Same patience, still holding the door open with a smile. And let's be honest, you did. You forgave them more times than they deserved. Maybe they ghosted you. Maybe they breadcrumbed you. Maybe they left without a goodbye. But you kept the faith. You kept hoping they'd change, that they'd grow up, that they'd finally show up like you needed them to. But they didn't. Or worse, they did come back. And every time they did, you welcomed them like nothing happened. Because your heart was real. You weren't keeping score. You weren't trying to punish them. You just wanted love. You just wanted effort. You wanted someone to look at you and say, "I'm here for real this time." But it was never real, was it? It was convenience. You were a soft place to land when the world beat them up. You were the relief, the reset, the safety net. But when it came time for them to show up for you, they disappeared again. Same pattern, same cycle. And still, you waited, but not anymore, because even the kindest hearts get tired. Even the most patient people run out of time. And yours reached the limit. That switch flipped. That moment came where you no longer felt sad. You felt done. That's when everything changed. You didn't yell. You didn't beg. You didn't throw a fit. You just finally saw the truth for what it was. They never thought they'd lose you. And when people think they've got unlimited chances, they stop valuing the opportunity. Let me give you an image. Imagine you're watering a plant every day, speaking life into it, giving it light, attention, love. And every day it stays the same. No growth, no response, just sitting there, lifeless, like your care didn't matter. So one day, you stop. You put the watering can down. You walk away. And now the plant starts withering. Because it wasn't the soil that kept it alive. It was you. That's what happened when you stopped showing up for someone who took your presence for granted. They thought it was them keeping the connection alive. But it was always you. And now that you're gone, the emptiness is louder than they can handle. But here's the truth, folks. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about making them miss you. This is about finally honoring the part of yourself that got tired of being second to someone who was your first. You're not cruel. You're not cold. You're just done begging someone to love you right. You've upgraded from hope to healing, from waiting to walking away. They thought you'd wait forever, but forever ended the moment you realized your own worth. The second you looked around and said, "I deserve more than this." That's when the game flipped. That's when the power shifted. That's when the clock ran out. And now they're watching the clock like it owes them more time. But the truth is, they used up every minute when they thought you'd never leave. They can sit with that now, with the silence, with the guilt, with the weight of their choices. Maybe they'll realize what they lost. Maybe they won't. But you're done waiting on someone who only loved you when it was easy. You're done hoping for a return that never brought anything new. And you're done playing loyal to someone who only gave you temporary attention. Say it with me. I'm done waiting. Say it again, like you're closing a chapter for good. I'm done waiting. Go write it in the comments. Let it echo. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're no longer standing at a door that leads nowhere. Number 5. The illusion of control, now broken. They thought they had you on a string until silence cut the cord. Let's break this down, my friends, because this is where the entire game flips. See, they were never scared of losing you. You were too available, too consistent, too forgiving. You were the open door, the safety net, the guaranteed response. They thought they could disappear for days, send half-hearted messages, show up when it was convenient, and you'd still be there, waiting, hoping, reacting. That was their illusion, that they held the power, that they controlled the rhythm of the relationship. But your silence? That was the glitch in their system, the fracture in their fantasy. And now that illusion is shattered, and they're scrambling to make sense of it. Because when someone thinks they can come and go as they please, they're not loving you. They're managing you, controlling the narrative, testing your limits, seeing how far they can push before you finally break. And for a long time, you didn't break. You absorbed it. You explained yourself. You made excuses for their behavior. You tried to fix it. You tried to fix them. You kept the door unlocked, even when they stopped knocking. But eventually, you stopped playing. You stopped being the predictable one, the one who always texted back, the one who reached out first, the one who carried the weight of two people. You stopped dancing to their rhythm and started walking to the beat of your own healing. And silence? That was your first step. It wasn't a punishment. It was your power, finally coming online. Let me paint the picture. Imagine someone standing on a stage, acting out a play they've done 100 times. Same lines, same reactions. They know your cues. They know exactly when you'll respond. But this time? Nothing. The spotlight's on them. But you're not in the audience anymore. You've left the theater, and now they're standing there, alone, confused, choking on their own script. Because the performance doesn't work when the one they were performing for has gone silent. That's what happens when you stop reacting. You stop being the puppet. You stop being predictable. And in that silence, they realize they've lost their grip. Not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting at all. That's what they never expected. Not the storm, not the argument, not the explosion, but the calm, the disconnect, the stillness. That's what scares someone who thought they controlled you, because silence isn't just quiet. It's unreadable. Now they're facing a version of you they can't reach. Not because you blocked them, but because you outgrew them. You see, when someone loses control, they don't panic because they lost you. They panic because they lost the version of you that was manageable. The one who answered at midnight, the one who forgave too quickly, the one who poured love into a cup with no bottom. But that version of you is gone. And what's left? It's not bitter. It's not vengeful. It's just done. They're sitting in confusion now, wondering why the same tactics don't work anymore, why the old messages aren't being answered, why the silence feels so permanent this time. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if you're moving on. They don't know if someone else is holding what they dropped. And that unknown? That's louder than any closure you could have given them. So let them sit with it. Let them spiral. Let them come face to face with the version of you they can't manipulate. Because real power doesn't need to speak. It doesn't need to warn. It just walks away and stays gone. And when they finally realize that your silence wasn't just a pause but a full stop, that's when the illusion breaks completely. Say it with me. I broke the cycle. Now say it again, like you mean it. I broke the cycle. Go write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that silence isn't weakness. It's closure they didn't earn. Number 6. When they realize too late, it hurts differently. Regret is a delayed punishment. They only feel it when you've stopped caring. That's the beauty of silence, my friends. It doesn't hit them when you walk away. It hits them after, long after, because when you left, they didn't flinch. They didn't chase. They didn't ask why. They didn't think it mattered. Your absence was met with arrogance, with pride, with the assumption that you'd be back, just like always. That's what happens when someone's gotten too comfortable with your presence. They assume it's permanent until it's not. They didn't feel it then. Not when you stopped texting, not when you pulled back, not even when you started going days without checking in. No, at first they thought they won, thought they had the upper hand, thought their silence was more powerful than yours. They thought your distance was temporary, that eventually you'd cave. But silence isn't surrender. It's the start of your awakening. And now, as they scroll through your old messages, check your page, stalk your story. Now it hits them. That ache in their chest, that pull in their gut, that's regret arriving exactly when it's no longer welcome. Because regret doesn't show up when it's useful. Regret doesn't operate on time. It shows up when they're alone, when the games stop working, when the attention they used to get from you is completely gone. And now? Now they're realizing the silence wasn't a game. It was the consequence, the echo of all the chances they wasted. Imagine a match being struck in the dark. At first, it lights up the room, warm and alive. But they don't protect it. They don't respect it. They play with it, ignore it. And then, it's out, gone. And suddenly the room feels colder than ever before. That's what your love was. They saw the light, took it for granted. And now they're standing in a dark room, trying to remember what it felt like when you still cared. It hits differently when they realize it's too late. Not just because you're gone, but because you're no longer accessible. You're not replying, you're not engaging, you're not even angry. And that's what hurts the most. Because when someone is still mad, still fighting, still emotional, it means there's still a connection. But when there's nothing left to react to, that's when it's real. That's when they realize they're not just losing you, they already lost you. And it's final. See, the thing about regret is this. It forces people to replay the very moments they ignored, the kindness they brushed off, the love they mistook for weakness, the apologies they never made, and now they're left in that loop. Rewatching memories you've already made peace with. You've moved on. You've healed. But they're stuck in rewind, haunted by what they never thought they'd miss until it was gone. They'll never admit it, not openly. Pride won't let them. They might post a quote, drop a vague caption, watch your story, and disappear again. But deep down, they're hurting. Not because you hurt them, but because you didn't wait around to be hurt again. You walked away, quietly, powerfully, and never looked back. And now the person they thought would always be there is nowhere to be found. Let them feel it. Let them wonder. Let them search for the version of you they once knew. Because that version doesn't exist anymore. That version evolved, grew, rose from the ashes they left behind. And that's why this pain hits differently. Because this time, you're not coming back. Not to prove a point. Not to give it one more shot. Not even for closure. You've become the chapter they can't rewrite. Say it with me. Too late to matter. Say it again, so your heart hears it loud and clear. Too late to matter. Write it in the comments. Let them know. Let yourself know. Show the world that you no longer hold space for people who only realized your value in your absence. Number 7. Your growth wasn't revenge, it was resurrection. Your growth wasn't to hurt them, it was to save you. Let's be real, my friends. They'll tell themselves all kinds of stories to protect their ego. That you went quiet to play games, that you're being petty, that you're seeking attention. They'll convince themselves your silence is a power move. But the truth? The truth is far less dramatic and far more powerful. You didn't go silent to punish them. You didn't fall off the radar to stir up regret. You went silent because you were finally tired of bleeding for someone who never brought you a bandage. You weren't trying to teach them a lesson. You were trying to escape the same one you had to keep learning over and over. You weren't being cold. You were finally choosing warmth that didn't burn you. Your silence wasn't revenge. It was resurrection. You were dying in that connection. Slowly, silently, piece by piece, losing sleep, losing confidence, losing yourself, until one day something inside you cracked, not from weakness, but from truth. And that truth whispered, "You don't belong here anymore." That whisper became a roar, and instead of screaming back, you walked away in silence. You started healing, not loudly, not with declarations or announcements, but quietly, privately, like a seed growing roots underground, like a phoenix gathering flame in the ashes. And now that you've risen, they don't recognize you, because the version of you they played with, toyed with, ignored, gaslit, that version is gone. Let me break it for you like this. Imagine someone treating a caterpillar like nothing, laughing at its stillness, ignoring its potential. And then one day, it's gone, out of sight, no warning. They think it vanished, moved on. Irrelevant. But it wasn't gone. It was transforming. And when that cocoon opens, it doesn't come back as what they remember, it comes back as something that doesn't crawl anymore. It flies. That's what your silence did. It didn't freeze you. It freed you. They don't know how to handle that, because the version of you that needed them no longer exists. The you that over-explained, over-loved, over-weighted, that person is now a memory, a ghost. And what stands in your place is someone calm, powerful, detached, and focused. Someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Someone who realized that closure isn't something you get. It's something you become. And here's the part that stings them the most. You're not doing any of this for them. Your glow-up isn't to catch their attention. Your peace isn't for performance. You're not living better to be seen. You're living better because you finally believed you deserved it. That's why it cuts deep. Because they're no longer the center of your story. They're just a footnote in the chapter where you found yourself again. Let them think whatever they need to think. Let them believe your silence is revenge. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to defend yourself. Growth doesn't argue with those who are committed to misunderstanding it. Real healing isn't loud. It doesn't broadcast. It just becomes. And if it makes someone uncomfortable to see you thriving without them, that's not your burden to carry. That's their mirror to face. So stay silent, stay rising, stay focused on the life you're building, not the people who watched you break and did nothing. Because while they sit there trying to decode your silence, you're out here building something they'll never have access to again. The new you. Say it with me. I chose growth. Say it again, with strength, with pride. I chose growth. Now write it in the comments. Don't whisper this. Own it. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your silence wasn't to hurt anyone. It was to resurrect the version of you that no longer tolerates half-love, empty apologies, or one-sided loyalty. So, folks, you didn't vanish to make a point. You evolved beyond the version of yourself that once begged to be seen. You're not bitter. You're just unavailable to anything that doesn't honor your peace. They thought you disappeared. But what really happened? You outgrew them, silently, powerfully, permanently. And now they finally understand. You're not coming back. Because the man who left, he was waiting. The man you are now, he doesn't need to. Say it with me. I've outgrown the past. Write it in the comments. Smash that like button, subscribe if you've stopped explaining and started evolving, and I will see you in the next video.